Welcome back. Since this is our first video in information gathering, we're going to start off with something easy. Let us see how we can identify our target and get its IP address. We're going to check how we can do this both actively and passively. Let's do it with active information gathering first. So, this means we're going to interact with our target. So just go on Google and pick a website that you want to use for this. It can be any website that you want, and you can also use the ones that I will show in this video. First, open up your terminal. And what we're going to do, for the first test, I'm going to use this website. This is just some university page that I picked, and what we can do to get its IP address is to ping it. Most of you will already be familiar with ping tool, since it is installed by default on any operating system. By pinging this website or any other website, we're sending something called ICMP packets to that website, and if we get responses back, that means that website is up and running. But what we also get besides that response is the IP address. So let's try it out. I will leave this link right here, and I will just add at the beginning ping space and then hit enter. And it seems that we're not getting any responses back, but what we did get is an IP address. Here it is. And we're not getting responses back from this site because it is probably blocking ping probes, which some websites often do. Let us try another site to see how it looks once we get responses back. So to stop this, you can simply just press Ctrl+C, and it will tell us 32 packets transmitted and 100% packet loss. Now this doesn't mean that this website is offline, since if we visited this link right here or this IP address, we would open a page to that website. But just in case, let us see how it looks like once we get the response back from the ping command. If I try to ping a big website, for example like Facebook, so let's type ping facebook.com. Here we get an IP address of Facebook, and we can Ctrl+C since we can notice that we are getting packets back, which means Facebook is up and running and also responding to our ICMP packets. Just to note, this IP address right here is just one of the IP addresses that Facebook uses. So for you, once you ping it, you will probably get a different result. Okay, what we saw right here is an example of active information gathering to get the IP address, since we directly send packets to these websites. Another tool you can use to get IP from a website is called NSLookup. So if I go down here and type NSLookup and then the name of the website, which in our case, let's try with the first one, which is this one. And once again, you can test any website you want with this. It doesn't matter. If I press enter, it will give me this response, which says server and address right here. But this is not the IP address of this website. This is just my router, and where the result or where the IP address of this website is down here. Here it is. If we compare this one and we go back to the ping command, you will notice the IP address is the same. So we got the same result, which is good. Let's try the same with Facebook, so just type right here NSLookup facebook.com. And we also get the IP address of Facebook. Now, if you wanted to do this passively, you would search for this information, such as IP address, over some other website. Let us see how we can do that. First of all, we want to open our Firefox, and to do that, just click on this Cal Linux icon in the top left corner and type Firefox. You should see Firefox ECR, click on it, and what we're going to look for is a website that provides us with IP address of a different website. And since I don't know any website that does that, I will simply just go right here in the search bar and type what is an IP address of this website. If I press enter, it should probably give me a few results of different websites that will do exactly what we want, which is get the IP address of another website. And let's go with this one, IP checker, which is ipinfo.info. If I click on it, and down here we see something that says IP domain checker. We need to specify the IP address, the domain, or URL. And if we type the domain name of that first website, so if I type the same domain name, and click right here on check. Okay, so some security check, select all traffic lights, let's select all traffic lights that we see. And here is the result. And you will notice that right here we get even more information than we asked for. For example, here is the IP address of this website. We also get from which country it is, as it says right here in the brackets, and we also get its geolocation, which says even the city. We can also check it out on Google Maps if we wanted to. Down here we get even more information such as reverse DNS. Here we get information about registration date, modification date, expiration date. Down here we get some of the DNS servers, and here we get its physical address. So this is the exact location to where this server is located. Now this is just the same result, I believe. Down here we also get some email addresses, as we can notice right here. All of this could be useful for us depending on which type of attack we would plan. Now of course we're not going to be attacking this website since we do not have permission, but we're simply just gathering information to see what can we retrieve from the internet about this website. And for now on, we're getting a bunch of information about it. Now, similar response that we got right here, we can get using a tool called Whois. Whois not only gives us an IP address of the specified domain, but it also gives us a bunch of other information about that domain. It is already installed in Kali Linux, so let's test it out. If I close this page and type in my terminal Whois, the same domain name, press enter, I will pretty much get the same information that I saw previously on that website. As we can see right here, we get those DNS servers, the registration date, modification date, expiration date, we get the physical address, and some other things such as ID number, tax ID, which is not really of interest to us. And let us also test this tool on Facebook, since different websites might give different information. For example, if I do the same on Facebook, since it being a much bigger site, it will probably give us much more information as well. So let's type it, Whois, facebook.com. Press enter, let me just enlarge the terminal so we can see everything clearly. And if I scroll all the way up, we get some name servers, text street, city, state, province, postal code. We also get some phone numbers right here. Here are some of the email addresses for the tech email. So we get another email address right here and even more phone numbers. We get the city, the street. If I go all the way up, we can see that this is a Whois response. So this all information is public to us. And this would be pretty much it. This is all the information we get for Facebook using Whois tool. And by the way, in real penetration tests that you will perform, all of the interesting information is something that you want to write down in a report. For now, we only saw how we can get basic information such as IP addresses, country origin, physical address and similar, but later during information gathering and scanning, we might find something that shouldn't be out there on the internet, and that would be called information disclosure. It is something that client doesn't want to be seen, but it is still publicly available. So anything that you might think is interesting, you would write down. Okay, great. Now we know how we can identify a target by getting its IP address, and also getting its physical address and some other interesting information as well. And even though this isn't really hard information to get, it is a good beginning. Let us see in the next video what else can we find out. Welcome back. Now we're going to discuss a tool called WhatWeb. This tool is used to gather information and to scan any website on the internet. So it is primarily used to scan websites, since this tool recognizes web technologies including web servers, embedded devices, JavaScript libraries, and many more things. They explain it really well on the website page for this tool. So we can read right here about all of the details that this tool has. We can notice they have over 1700 plugins, each one of them used to recognize something different. So they use these plugins to perform the scan on the website and discover what technologies does that website run. What is important for us is this second paragraph, since down here it tells us that default level of aggression called stealthy is the fastest and requires only one HTTP request of a website. Now what this simply means is that this WhatWeb tool has different levels for scanning. And the default level is the level of aggression that is called stealthy, which we can use on any website that we want. The other levels of scanning are more aggressive and should only be performed during penetration tests. So we should not use the more aggressive scans on the websites that we do not have permission to scan. We can, however, use the stealthy scan on any website that we want on the internet. And don't worry, we are going to see all of these options in just a second. For now, it's good that we know what we can or cannot do. So let's test this tool out in our Cal Linux. To do it, open up your terminal, and to check out all of the options we can do with WhatWeb, you can simply just type WhatWeb in your terminal and press enter. This will give you a smaller help menu with some of the basic features that WhatWeb has. As we can see, we can specify targets, which can be anything from URLs, host names, or IP addresses. Here is that aggression level, which we specify like this. There is the aggression level 1, which is stealthy, and the aggression level 3, which is aggressive. The default level is level 1, which is good to notice, so we don't want to change this if we scan a random website on the internet. We can also list all of the plugins that it uses, but we are not currently interested in this. And we can have also a verbose output. But these are just some of the options for the WhatWeb tool. To get even more available options with WhatWeb, we can type the command whatweb-help. Press enter, and this will give us a much larger help menu with all of the possible options that we can use for WhatWeb. And down here is the aggression level. We can see besides the stealthy that we're going to use on random websites, and besides the aggressive scan that you would use in a penetration test, there is even more aggressive scan called heavy, and it says right here, makes a lot of HTTP requests per target, URLs from all plugins are attempted. So this is basically the deepest scan that WhatWeb tool can perform on a website. Up here are also the targets, so we specify a target first, and if I go all the way down, you will notice right here we got some of the examples of usage of WhatWeb. So we can see right here that the most simple example is running WhatWeb and then the domain name. So for the first run, let us go with this one. We're only going to specify website as an option. So just type down here WhatWeb. And since we're using the aggression level 1, we can scan any website that we want. So I'm going to go with this one. And this is just another university website from my country. Feel free to scan any website that you want, or you can also go with this one if you'd like. If I press here enter, in just a few seconds we should get response for this website. And here it is, we already got something. We got 2 responses, as we can see by the links right here. The command has finished executing, so let us just go through these results and see what we got. It tells us that it most likely performed a redirect as soon as we tried getting this link. We can also see that we got the Apache web server. We even get the version, which is 2.4.6. We got some cookies right here, which the website uses. We got from which country it is, which type of HTTP server it uses. If I go down here, here is the IP address of this website. Here's the PHP version that they use. And the redirect location, if you remember, I told you that it most likely redirected us to a different page. Here is to where it redirected us. And once we got redirected, we got the response of 200 OK. And this is just an HTTP response code, which tells us that we successfully loaded a page. We got the same Apache version, the Bootstrap version, which cookies it uses. Down here we got the country, and we also managed to extract some of the emails. As we can see down here, these are some of the emails from the page that belong to this domain. Down here we also see that it uses HTML5, which HTTP server it has, which Apache version it has, once again which PHP version, the IP address. It also uses jQuery, Lightbox, and a bunch of other things we can see right here. But I don't really like how this is outputted. It is hard to read. To output this a little bit prettier, we can use this verbose option that I saw in the help menu. Here it is. And what this verbose option does is it also includes plugin descriptions. It will also tell us for each plugin that the WhatWeb tool managed to discover, it will tell us what exactly that plugin is. So let's try it out. If I type WhatWeb and then the same website, but I add -v option at the end and press enter, it will pretty much give us the same result, just it will be outputted a whole lot better and easier to read. If I scroll all the way up to the beginning of the command, remember we got two responses. Here is the IP address, and this is the first request or first response, which tells us to move to the actual website, so the redirect response. We get all of this information that we got previously, but we also get this section right here which says detected plugins. And for example, if we didn't know what Apache was, we could read right here what Apache is. And down here we get the version that this website has of the Apache. We also get for cookies, same thing. For HTTP server, we can see which operating system, which Apache server it is, which PHP version it is. It tells us right here what PHP is, for example, if we didn't know. PHP is a widely used general purpose scripting language. Redirect location. So after this request, it redirects us to this location. And down here, we get the response 200 for the actual page. We get once again the country, the IP address, and all of the detected plugins. And we can read through this and discover what is this website running. And it is outputted a whole lot better and easier to read than the previous command. Okay, good. So we managed to get the information as to what a certain website is running, which technologies it has, and in the next video, we're going to deeply go into this tool and try to perform some of the more aggressive scans as well as experiment with some of the different options of WhatWeb as well. Welcome back. Let's continue with our WhatWeb tool. So in the previous video, we only saw how we can perform the basic stealthy scan on a certain website. Another thing that we can do with WhatWeb, besides testing a website, is to test a range of IP addresses all at once. So if I open up my terminal and I type WhatWeb --help once again to list out all of the available options and scroll all the way up, here under the targets we can see that we can specify URLs, host names, IP addresses, but we can also specify IP ranges. We can specify them like this or like this. Now to test this out, I'm going to scan my entire home network. And to know what range of IP addresses should I scan for my home network, I could type down here command ifconfig or sudo ifconfig, since remember, this requires root privileges. Press enter, enter our password, and we can see that my IP address is 192.168.1.4. And what's more important than the IP address in this case is the net mask. And my net mask is 255.255.255.0. The subnet mask right here means that only the last octet of my IP address is changeable which is this last number. So these first 3 octets, or these first 3 numbers, never change in my home network. This also means that the range of IP addresses that belong to my network are going to be from 0 to 255. So basically the range of the IP addresses that my network can have is this one, 192.168.1.0 to 192.168.1.255. This is the range of my home network. So let me scan it. Now, for you, it might be different based on what type of network you got, but in most home networks the subnet mask is going to be this one. Therefore, just the last octet will be changeable for you. Now, before I actually run the scan, I don't have any websites hosted in my home network. But I do got some devices running something on port 80, and port 80 is an HTTP port that websites use to host their pages. So we should still get some result from scanning my network. Let us go delete this and type whatweb, and then the range of my home network. Let us go with 1 to 192.168.1.255. So this is the range of IP addresses that I want to scan, and all of them belong to my home network. And the good thing right here is that I can use whichever aggression level I want, since it is my own network. Let's test out aggression level 3. To do that, we can specify --aggression and then 3. After it, we can also specify the -v option to better output all of this. And let's press enter. You will notice we're getting some of the results, but there is a lot of this error happening on the screen. Now, what this error right here is, let me just Control-C, since we're not going to wait for this to finish. And what this error is all of the hosts that it tried to scan but couldn't manage to. And the reason why it couldn't manage to scan these hosts is because they do not exist. I currently only have around 2 or 3 devices on my home network, and all of these other IP addresses are out of use. So let me go up here to see what it found. It found the result for the IP address 192.168.1.1, and this is my router. Down here we can see all of the plugins that it managed to detect for my router. We can see an interesting plugin, which is password field. This is something that we would write down, since any password field that we find, we can use later on in something like a brute force attack to try to guess the password and try to brute force the login credentials. But nonetheless, this is just a router, so we're not really interested in it at the moment. This is just an example of a test of how it would look like. And since I don't have any website on my home network, it didn't really give much result. We can see right here, here is another IP address that is active. It is 192.168.1.10, and this is an IP address of my laptop, which is currently up and running. It detected this HTTP server on it, but it got the status code of 403 forbidden. So it is not allowed to visit that page. Therefore, this is as much information as it managed to get. And all the other ones down here are simply just offline. Now, if you don't want this outputted, this red text, you can use the same command and at the end add --no errors. What this no errors option does is it simply just doesn't print these offline IP addresses. Let's test it out. If I run the same command, just with no errors, you will see we are not going to get any red text anymore. It will only scan these 2 live IP addresses, which is my home router and the laptop, and that is basically it. That is everything that it will output. Okay, so it took just a few seconds to finish, and keep in mind that since we are running level 3 of aggression scan, it will take a little bit more time to scan something than with level 1, since it is performing a deeper scan than just the level 1 stealthy scan. Okay, so we ran this command, and we used the aggression level 3. We used -v to output all of the detected plugins as well as their description. And we used no errors to not print out these offline IP addresses. But what if we, for example, wanted to save this output that we got in a file for some future references? Well, if I type the command whatweb --help and I go through this help menu once again, I will get to this part which is logging. And down here we can see that there are a bunch of options that we can use to log our file or to save our file. So let's just go with the first one. Or we can even use the second one, which is to log verbose output. To do that, we use this option right here and then equals and then the file name that we want it to save to. So if I go down here, and another useful command, once you have a bunch of things happening in your terminal, and by bunch of things I mean just bunch of text printed out, what we can do to get rid of this is run the command clear. This will clear our terminal so we get much cleaner look. Now if I press upper arrow to find the command that we ran previously, and at the end I add log and then dash verbose equals, and here I can call the file results, for example. If I press here enter, now you will notice that besides of this outputting it to the terminal, it will also save it inside of a file. Let's wait for this to finish to check out the file that we got. Okay, so it finished. Let us clear the screen once again. And if I type ls right here, we will see our results file. Let's lower the terminal and open this file to see what it got saved. And if I enlarge it, we will see that we got our results saved for both IP addresses, for my laptop IP address and for my router IP address. Now, for your scan, if you scan your home network, you will probably have more devices or less devices, or you might not get any result in case none of your devices is having an open port 80, or in case none of your devices is running an HTTP server. So don't worry if you didn't get any device. This is just an example to see that we can even run the ranges of IP addresses, and to test out this aggression level 3 scan, since we can only do it on the websites that we own or have permission to scan. Okay, great, so look at all of the commands that we crafted with all of these options right here. And this is just a part of this whatweb tool. You don't need to be learning all of these commands. You can always just run the help command and read through its help menu to discover what you want to run. We won't be going through all of these options in whatweb tool, since there is too much of them, but I encourage you to play with it a little bit and see if it has any other interesting options. Great! In the next video, we're going to see how we can harvest or gather as much emails as possible from just knowing a domain. See you there!